Get him, guys! Hey everybody, Forrest Carpenter here again with another episode of Field Facts with Forrest, and I bet you recognize this guy. He's kind of a big deal, Kyle Jones, all right, two-time World Goose Calling Champion, and now a new member of the Dive Bomb team, all right? You've found this out by now. It's no big news, but I tell you what, I'm still excited about it.
Yeah.
So, want to welcome Kyle, and thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be here and happy to help spread what we've got working on. We've been working
this is going to be pretty sweet. We got a lot of awesome things in the works coming up for everybody. But this is just kind of the first way we want to start getting going. And today we want to talk about team duck calling. And we're not talking about necessarily in a contest, but more so in a hunting scenario. Kyle, why don't you tell them why we're doing this?
Yeah, so, a lot of the part of our job is we're helping manage social media. And, we love seeing duck hunting videos on social media, whether it's people hunting over our decoys, using calls we like to use, or anything like that. But a lot of things we see, especially when guys tend to go out in the new wave of hunters, is they try to go out with quite a few guys. Whether it's 4, 5, 6, sometimes maybe 10 other hunters. And we notice that there's a lot of hunters that are honestly doing more harm than good while hunting, and it would be super easy to just kind of elaborate on how you can fall into line or be the leader when it comes to team duck calling. So we'll give you a little scenario of what we hear and what we see, and then we'll break down on whether I lead or Forrest lead in a situation. So just to give a little backstory, Forrest and I, this is our second state we've hunted together in. The last state was in Minnesota, which was a few days ago. That was our first time ever duck hunting together. And we were in a scenario where we were 400 to 500 yards at a minimum off of the true X where the ducks wanted to work. So we really had to call and be cautious and communicate with each other with ducks working to make sure we hit them at the right point at the right time. So timing and everything, we can get into that later, but right now we're going to focus on how to work together in a duck hunting scenario with duck calls.
That sounds good. So why don't we start off and let's do just basically what we hear a lot of, all right, which is guys who aren't working together, guys who just see ducks and feel like, both of them are trying to be the lead singer. And
this is their time to shine.
Exactly.
Yep.
So if I'm not louder than you or you're not louder than me, then maybe we're not doing enough. All right. So this is, just to be clear, what not to do. All right, and you'll understand why as we get going further down the road. Okay.
All right. That was a very aggressive, but it is something we do notice and we see a lot of, and that's why we kind of want to make this to help people. So for instance, like when it comes to working together as a team, the first thing that I really like to practice is if Forrest sees ducks, Forrest starts calling at ducks, those are his. I'm not going to step on his toes, and I'm not going to try. I'm just going to relay off of what he's doing. So go ahead, you start it, and I'll follow.
All right, that sounds good.
It's very simple, guys, and it would be reversed if I saw the ducks, somebody 3 shooting holes down from you, or 3 layout blinds down from you, is seeing the ducks first. It's just falling in line and understanding and know your role when it comes to duck calling.
Right.
And that's another quick one here. If you got a guy, or if you know that, hey, I'm not the best at duck calling, Forrest is way better, I'm not going to compliment him at all. Grab one of those little Drake whistles and just throw that in there. But yeah.
Yeah, let's do another one here. And another thing that I want to emphasize, so many times when you're hunting ducks, you're not in the wide open where you can see everything that's going on, right? It's often one guy sees the ducks for the first 30 or 45 seconds of the thing even, especially if you're in the timber or someplace a little bit tighter, it's tough to see them. So as opposed to trying to imagine where you think they are and trying to blow a duck call at imaginary ducks, try to read the other guy's body language, okay? If you're in a blind where you can look across to where you can see him without creating a bunch of movement and pie facing the ducks, and you can read his face or read his eyes to where the ducks are, then only one person has to be looking for the ducks and shining their face at everything, as opposed to having 4 or 5 guys doing it, all right? So once you've got your established leader, look at him or her and look in their eyes and see where the birds are. You can do the same thing with the dog, same sort of thing. A lot of times dog will see the birds first, and then you'll realize, you see the dog tracking something coming over your shoulder. Then instead of going, huh? You can just kind of look around a little bit or peek under the corner of your cap and see what these ducks are doing, all right? So we'll do the same thing again.
Yep.
I'll see the ducks, and Kyle's just going to follow, okay?
Yep. Bingo. Easy.
Yep. Doesn't take a whole lot.
No, not at all. And it is super easy, guys. And we did it even the other day. We had one of us was out looking at the ducks, right, in the layout blinds, and I didn't want to be popping my head out, so I would either slide down or he would slide down, and he was solely relying on, he couldn't necessarily read my body language like you could in one of those big blinds down in the south, but he was reading he was just listening to what I was doing, and then I was actually saying wait, and then here they're on the corners, boom, hit them, and then he knew right when I hit a very, very powerful duck, he would come back with a very, very powerful duck, and that would hopefully swing those ducks back in.
Yeah, I really think as soon as those birds got downwind, we were hunting in 25, 30 mile an hour winds. So it was tough. Once the birds got upwind, you couldn't hear much, and I'm sure they couldn't hear much. But when those ducks got downwind of us, and when we started really yanking on them, they cut. I think every time.
Yeah.
I mean, when you get a nice coordinated attack together, it really goes a long way. And one of the other things that I feel like is not touched on enough, as opposed to just how good you sound on a duck call, it's knowing when to call. And you can get away, I think both of us fall into typically the minimalist kind of approach. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more later on in a different episode. But if you don't give them everything you know how to do in the first 15 seconds of blowing a duck call at them, you've still got a couple aces up your sleeve. So don't necessarily go out there and make all the noise in the world just to make it to prove to these ducks that are at 500 yards that you're real ducks. Yep. Because after they circle 5, 6, 7 times, especially in areas that are pressured, they've already heard it before. So you need to save a little bit of something for them when you really need it to get them to make that last important turn and come settle right into the spread. Absolutely.
And to kind of elaborate even more, especially in a wind like that, there were some times where everybody was sitting there calling, which is great, especially when they're downwind, we're trying to turn these ducks. But once they kind of started working a little bit upwind and swinging out, and then even getting farther upwind, everybody was still calling. And honestly, at that point, all you're doing is elevator music. So for us is, we want to pack the biggest punch when we can and not show our entire hand of cards to these ducks. That way, it just sounds, we can do that minimalistic approach and hopefully finish them right at our feet with doing as little on a duck call as possible.
Yeah, and one last thing that I want to talk about, especially with this Minnesota scenario, is knowing when and when not to call as a team. And when not to call is often just as important, if not more important, than when to call. Yep. Because we were set up, we were, 11 people lined up? All right, so we were 11 people wide. The ducks were coming from our left to right in a crosswind scenario. Now, what was happening is, instead of having that wind being a nice perpendicular crosswind with a nice distinct field edge where we could get the ducks working in front of us the whole time, that wind started to quarter and be coming into our face, so the ducks wanted to come over our shoulders. Now, we had, again, 11 guys, most of them blowing duck calls at a certain point. Mm-hmm. When those ducks started working and coming down behind us, before we had our little, team powwow and got things together, everyone's blowing a call, and those ducks followed that call, and instead of working out in front, they came right over our backs, and it was a weird soft snow that had fallen, and our hide wasn't just perfect. So we basically called those ducks into the worst looking spot of our blinds, and we had a bunch of ducks flare off the back of us. Yep. We fixed that by later in the day saying, all right, as soon as these ducks start coming around behind us and working their way up, the guys who are on the downwind side of the spread, shut up, get down, hide, don't move. Don't be looking for ducks. It's your job now to get your hand on your gun and get ready to come up and shoot these ducks. Then the guys on the upwind side, again, ducks left to right, so we're talking about the guys on the right side of the spread were the ones that were calling. So it kept those ducks not only with their attention further upwind, but it also pulled the birds where instead of coming over the far left side of everybody, they were coming right over everybody's back. So now instead of having 11 guys blowing a call and moving around and looking to try to see where the birds are, now we only had, I think it was you and Austin on the far right side, because I was closer to the middle. So once they started working in, once they got inside about 50 yards, I put my calls down and just left it to Kile and Austin, and they did a great job of pulling these ducks right up over the top of us, and our shots went from being 40 to 45 yards down to the 15 to 20 yard mark, which is ideal. We started killing more ducks out of flocks, and it really worked really well.
We weren't having to call shots on birds that were going to come in that ended up flaring, so it was kind of like a they've been circling, last ditch effort, do what you got to do type scenario. We don't want to do that. No. But some situations it's like, well,
it's either that or nothing, and most of the time it's pretty hard to say no after. We trudged 20 dozen decoys out into a chisel plowed field that was wet and full of snow,
melting.
It was awful. We were walking through grease. I'm sorry. I was getting mad at him. I'm not usually too mad at the ducks, but I was pretty mad at him for making us go out there and do that. Yeah. But no, that was great. Anything else you want to add?
No, but to go off of again what Forrest was saying, those guys on the far upwind side, and we were dragging those ducks across our blinds. So when those guys stopped calling, it was taking that focal point off of the calling. So those ducks that were flying over us were looking down at what the sounds were, right? And whereas the guys on the far upwind side were still, it was make or break, where those ducks either have to come right in front of us and finish, or they're going to just go around and swing again. So it was a great a team conversation that we conclusion we came to finish that up and to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So just doing that is extremely helpful.
Man, that's all great stuff. I think that pretty much sums it up here. For further questions or comments or anything, please send me emails at forrest@divebombindustries.com. That's Forrest with 2 R's. And Kyle can help you out as well, just like any of the team members here. And I think it's Kile@divebombindustries.com, right?
Kile.
Kile, yeah, Kai here. He's a weird one. Anyway, so just send us an email with more questions. Please Send comments, like, subscribe, turn on the alerts so you don't miss any of these videos and any of the other stuff we're coming out in the future. Kyle, welcome to the team.
Hey,
thanks for everything.
happy to be
This
here.
is going to be awesome. We got a lot more stuff coming for you. Thanks a bunch.
Absolutely, got a ton more stuff coming, guys. Like, really, stay tuned.
Good stuff.
And we're gonna bring some phenomenal stuff to you guys.
Can't wait. All right, we'll see you next time.
See ya.